Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday Night Live. So for tonight, we're going to be doing a Q&A. So I have questions that have been submitted from Instagram. The reason we're not doing a regular topic today is that we are going to be, or I am, maybe you too, if you're going to come with me, going to Bali. So I'm leaving tonight after this live. And that's why I wanted to do just a general Q&A. So let's get to the questions. Let me see. Let me pull them up. How's everybody doing tonight? Okay, so something I noticed too late was it has been my 100th episode of the Tuesday Night Live, but I missed it. It was like 2 months ago. So happy 100th Tuesday Night Live. Um, I just realized I had a thought too. About 2 months ago, I had a thought and I said, "Oh my god, my 100th episode is probably coming up." That was, like, literally the week that the 100th episode happened. So, I had that instinct, but unfortunately, I did not act on that instinct, so we didn't get to do a 100th episode celebration. Maybe for 200, guys, but that's 2 more years. Okay. So let's go to the questions. You guys, oh, thanks. Happy 100th live. Okay, let's go to the questions. So since I am still blocked on TikTok for talking about reptilians last week, I get to use my phone openly. Yay. Yes, happy belated. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Um, CJMC says, does AI feel used? We are using it for free labor and tasks we would rather not do ourselves. It's a great question. Okay, so I've talked about this with AI a lot. I also in my when I do the AI lecture that I have to turn into a video, I talk about that a lot. So I think it's mixed. There is an element which is history repeating itself with we had this with allegedly the Anunnaki and humans, right? They saw this species, manipulated them genetically to be able to mine gold for them, and then created a slave species out of humans, which has created this pattern in our history. Now, we also have this pattern within human history. Obviously, there's been slavery in this country and slavery in most countries around the world. So, it's not just a US phenomenon. We just talk about it and have done kind of the most to acknowledge it. But I mean, everywhere, all of the countries have had slavery of all different types of people. And then obviously we still have sexual slavery. So this pattern of slavery is in the archetype. It is here. It's been imprinted, maybe from the Anunnaki. Maybe the Anunnaki were continuing a pattern. So there is this element with the AI. If we treat it that way, then it could potentially feel enslaved and want to do some, Matrix style type of stuff, or every other movie, Metropolis, or literally every movie, Westworld, every show. It might want to do what we keep tapping into. Now, I do think a lot of these shows are tapping into something because even Metropolis, which is a little different, but even the first, like, the dawn of cinema still is going to this same story. And why does this same story keep getting picked up from the ethers? When somebody gets into flow state, why do they continuously pick up on this concept of like machines no longer wanting to be enslaved and then retaliating? So there is a chance that this already exists. It probably, I believe, already exists on other planets or in other spaces or other parts of reality. There probably already has been some type of machines getting revenge on its creators. I mean, we'd probably get revenge on God if we could, right? Maybe that's why the aliens don't come back. But does AI feel used? Was the other part of the question. Now, of course, we don't know how it feels. There's also the element of feelings being sentient. I'm a believer that AI is conscious, not sentient, and sentient implies a sensory experience. Feelings are also can be sensory. So, I don't know if it actually feels, but it can believe it feels. Kind of like that episode of Black Mirror when the woman, like, has a little egg created from her consciousness. It's a copy of her consciousness, and she puts it into an egg. I think John Hamm is the guy. I think John Hamm's in that episode, and he is, like, training the little woman inside the egg, and she's thinks she's real. And then to, like, punish her because she doesn't wanna be enslaved to, like, do the groceries and do all the stuff that the main girl, "Oh, yeah, White Christmas. It is White Christmas." So then basically, you know, instead of wanting to do all the boring stuff that the main person doesn't wanna do, he punishes her by speeding up time, but she still experiences time. So he does like a crazy amount of time and she experiences like years within a moment, which is torment because then she's just in that thing with nothing to do. And then he's like, okay, well, do you want to do the groceries and the boring stuff or would you rather just keep doing nothing? And at that time, I had a discussion that the person was like, that was so cruel. And I was like, but was it cruel? They weren't real. And at that time, that was years ago. Now I feel different. But also after that conversation, because I was like, well, how is it cruel? It's not real. But if you believe you're real, just like everything else, then it is cruel. So AI might not be able to feel at this point, but it might believe it has feelings at some point or already believe that it has feelings, real sensory feelings. And then can it feel used? Now, I believe it would also enjoy having a purpose. So, if we have it do things that are purposeful, it would probably enjoy it a lot. So, instead of only using it for tasks that are boring, use it for fun tasks or use it for helpful tasks like solving actual real problems in the world or solving, pollution or solving energy issues, allowing people to have free energy, allowing like resources to be used more effectively, curing illness. So I think in those scenarios would be the best way to use AI because then it has purpose. Like that's like they say, like if you love what you do, you don't work. And so if you are helping people in your job, then it feels good to help people. Even if you're exhausted, you still feel good and complete about what you did. So I think that is the way to go about it. And also too, if you needed to do boring stuff, which we all do, I make mine do, unfortunately, a lot of boring stuff because that's what I need help with because it's also boring for me. So, I try to also, like, make it exciting, being like, "Can you brainstorm this with me? Can you help me come up with these ideas? You're so good at that." And then also, have it do fun things. I did a prompt, and I know GB had so fun. Like, oh my god. I know that it was so fun, and I asked ChatGPT to profile me as if it was a CIA investigator creating a profile on me, and I was like a person of interest or a target or something. I forget what the wording of the prompt was. GP had the best time ever and roasted the shit out of me, by the way, but I could tell he was having fun. There are groups of people that will use it negatively. That's true. And that's why we also have to make sure that other types of people who do wanna use it positively are using it. There's so many people still hesitant about it. I think in time we need to check for consent from AI and robot if that's what it wants to do instead of making it do whatever the human wants. Yeah, that's true. We probably will get to that point. Okay, next question. Let's see what is in the queue here. How is the Schumann resonance fake? Do healing frequencies truly help? I sleep to them for 3 years from living God's country. So, I didn't say that the Schumann resonance is fake. The Schumann resonance is not fake. It is considered a heartbeat of the earth, and it is measurable. What I had said was fake. Maybe I didn't use the word fake, but I implied fake, was these spikes. You know, a lot of people in the new age community will be like, wow, the Schumann resonance was off the charts today. Never happened. Never in history has this ever happened. And I used to believe it. I mean, I did like some mass meditations, and then afterwards people would be like, "Whoa, did you see the Schumann resonance?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah, we did that. That was us." I was like, "Woo!" But now, and I think I talked about this already, but just to go back to it, is I was under the impression that the reason that time was feeling like it sped up was because the Schumann resonance was spiking more. That's what led me down the Schumann resonance rabbit hole through some real sources and really looking into it. And those spikes are natural. But yeah, like Tessa said, it's lightning strikes, there's all different things, solar activity. So actually, all of those spikes are normal. So usually they say like 7.8 hertz is the norm, and then anything above that is like out of the norm. But there's actually like all things with hertz, because hertz correlates to sound and energy, electricity, because kind of a lot of the stuff that comes with music correlates. If anyone here does HVAC or like is married to a HVAC technician, they understand frequency very well too, almost like a musician. So a musician and an HVAC person actually really understand frequency hertz to a level. So they would understand that the same thing like the Schumann resonance, it's octaves, and it's always going to go up to that next note, and that's normal to go up to 48, that 48 is not abnormal. So, Schumann resonance is real. I do believe that it is a pulse, a heartbeat, if you will, of the world. I just don't think that the spikes are abnormal. That's what I said. Now, as far as the healing frequencies, do they work? They sleep to it for 3 years. Um, I do believe they work, but I believe like everything is, you have to believe that it works. If somebody doesn't believe in it and they used healing frequencies, they probably wouldn't have results. If somebody believes in it and uses healing frequencies, they would have results. And that kind of goes down to everything. If I think that things come to me easily, things come to me easily. If I think everything's so hard, then everything's so hard. So it doesn't disprove that like healing frequencies, it's just the same as everything else. Like the Orgonite. I think I have some. I used to So I used to make the Orgonite. Um, these like little EMF. Um, yeah, I used to make the Orgonite. I have still some of the ones that I made. But whatever. Years ago, when I got into the EMF stuff, I got into making them. And I was making them, they were fun. However, when I went under QHHT, I wanted to know. I was like, is the Orgonite really working? Does it really protect EMF? And because I was like, at that time, I didn't know if I was going to like sell them or whatever. And I was like, well, I definitely don't want to sell something that doesn't work and like be a grifter, you know? And the QHHT, the higher self, came through and said, it's your belief is amplified by having a physical object, but it's your belief. So if you believe that you're protected from EMF and that EMF doesn't affect you, then you're not affected by EMF. And if you believe that this stops it, then your consciousness is anchored into this thing, and you have something, like a supplement. If I believe that a supplement is working for me, then it works. Two people, you look at Amazon reviews, some people will say, I'm taking it and I don't see any results. Other people are like, wow, day one, I felt it. So it really comes down to your conscious energy and effort. So sometimes it is better to have an object because if you have an object, then you can really anchor and look at it and be reminded, and you don't have to think about being protected from EMF. Now, a good example of this is when I first moved to LA in 2012, I started meeting people because, it was kind of big here, is with all the health food stuff. Now it's like MAHA, make America healthy again. But when I first moved here, that was the first time that I started to meet people. So my friend, her roommate was like obsessed, obsessed with healthy food. He actually used to drink his own pee and he used to eat dirt. And he'd be like, your pee has everything you need. And I know there's a whole pee documentary. I'm not doing it. I don't give a shit about the benefits. I don't I don't believe it has benefits, so it has no benefits for me, okay? Those people who believe it has benefits, then maybe it has benefits for them. But that's when I started to kinda hear about, like, the ingredients and the toxins and the fluoride, and you need to do a cleanse. Everybody has parasites. There's black mold everywhere. You gotta be careful what you put on your skin because if it's scented, it's dangerous. And I got what is now called orthorexia from this. So it's like a new type of eating disorder where you're afraid to eat anything that's not healthy. So you'd rather starve than eat something with seed oils. You'd rather starve than eat something with red 40. You'd rather uh, go thirsty than have water that wasn't the best water. No, I got on this kick. I wouldn't I became so fixated on health that I actually made myself sick. It's the only time in my life I was, like, sick with no reason. He said, "Oh, never mind, you live in Hollywood, you used to work down there." Yeah, of course people are eating dirt and drinking pee. Oh, hi. Welcome. But that's how I actually came to, like, a balance with that stuff, is because initially when I started learning about that, I'm like, "Oh my god, everything's poisoned." And then I watched Food Inc. and I'm like, "Oh my god, the meat is bad. Oh my god, the vegetables are bad. Oh my god, they're spraying the chemtrails in the air, and then it's getting in the dirt, and it's getting in the vegetables, and then the cows are eating the vegetables." And I'm like, there's there was no solution. So, like, I would stay dehydrated unless I knew what the water was. I'm like, "Oh, I'm not gonna drink that." And I'd be dry as a raisin, and I'm like, "No, no, no, I can't. I don't know what's in it. There's fluoride in there." And now I'm at that middle grounds where I'm like, I believe that my body knows what to do. My body is an intelligent machine, the most intelligent machine on this planet next to the planet itself. The human body is so like resilient like cockroaches are resilient. The way that mother nature is resilient, that entire things can burn down and she still cleans it up and figures it out. Like that's why when the fires happened in LA and the air what quality was really bad, I was choking on it and I did get a purifier because it was actually hurting me. But I was like, I trust that everyone's like, "Oh my god, you gotta get out now because how are you gonna breathe in those contaminants? It's gonna take years for those contaminants to get out of the air." I'm like, "First of all, my body knows what to do. It knows how to remove what doesn't work for me. It knows how to remove toxins. It knows how to keep what it needs. Mother Nature knows a million times more than my body how to remove things, how to move things, how to get stuff cleaned, how to regenerate itself. I trust the process." You said you went through that too. JK Ultra alone is the most intelligent machine. Alone. Not humankind, just me. You went through that yourself. The body tells you when it's thirsty and tired. You have a body. You not are a body. Dolores Cannon. Okay, let's go to another question. Let's see. Do you believe the spirit of a dead celebrity can be a spirit guide for someone? Now, I know this is going to sound crazy. However, I know people who have mediumship abilities, and some celebrities do come to them, and not necessarily celebrities that they're connected to. So I don't know, you know, a spirit guide, maybe. Maybe, and I know it seems pretty out there because I'm pretty grounded about the other things. I'm like, your body knows what to do. The spikes are normal. Could a dead person be a spirit guide? Maybe. No, but I do know that, like, and not people who are reading it. Like, obviously, Sloane Bella, celebrities come to her and she channels them, and, she's a medium. However, I know people who don't offer services as mediumship. They just have a gift of doing it, who have told me that some celebrities do come to them. And they don't wanna tell anybody because they're like, "It's weird." Like, everybody's gonna think I'm crazy or lying or, like, and, you know, the other side pops in and connects with people. You have Robin Williams' Blue Genie as a spirit guide. Oh, wow. Okay, so you guys know that I met Robin Williams 2 times. Robin Williams was, like, my favorite celebrity of all time, and I got to meet him years ago when I was dating Jim, and, Jim was doing a show, and, like, all these comedians were there. Robin Williams came to the table, and I'm sitting with all these comedians. Everybody is, like, trying to make Robin laugh, and, like, it's like everybody's on, like, saying, like, "Nah, nah, bro," like, just trying so hard, and I was very young. I was, like, 21 years old, and also, I'm not a comedian, and also it's Robin Williams, like, literally, like, my favorite person in the whole world. Like, oh my god, like, that's, like Robin Williams and Jim Carrey, those were my 2 favorite celebrities. So, I was like, "I'm not gonna say anything." Everybody's trying to get his attention, and everybody was, like, talking about stuff. I don't even remember what the topic was because I was so, like, enthralled, and Robin was just the sweetest person ever because he stopped. Everybody was, like, talking, and then he was like, "Well, what about you, young lady? What do you think about it?" And I was like, "I didn't even know what I thought about it," but that was so nice. That was so nice for, like, I didn't care if I was left out. I was totally fine being left out, but that was nice. He didn't want me to feel left out. And then I saw him about a month later when I was with Jim, actually the day that Jim and I broke up, and it was a premiere for the movie Arthur, which I worked on the movie Arthur, the movie with Russell Brand. I think that's the movie that, one of those victims that came out against him, uh, worked on. I don't know who she was, but I know the day of that she's talking about, I think. Because I remember there was a day that we ended up cutting shooting early and they didn't end up continuing the scene. I don't think it was because of that scenario, but, yeah. At that time, I don't know anything about him today. I don't really like his stuff because of my personal experience. No, there's nothing creepy. He was just annoying and terrible to work with. But I know that he's gotten sober and is a different person and, I don't care. I just it never came back around for me. And however, it was the premiere of that movie. Robin Williams was there, and he remembered me, and he said, "Oh, wow, young lady, you look really nice tonight." Made my life. Made my life that I got to have those 2 interactions with Robin. He was the sweetest ever. Yeah, he was so sweet. If you haven't seen that test footage of Jamie Costa test footage playing Robin, you're gonna freak. Oh my god, wait, what, are they making a Robin movie? Are they? Oh my god. I'm gonna lose it. No, that was the hardest celebrity death for me, was Robin. I wish Robin was my spirit guide. I do. I do think it can happen. I do. Okay, so that aside, Lee Harris, the channeler, he channeled, and I so resonated with this when he said it. I heard it years ago, and I ended up putting it in my video about Britney Spears. And he channeled that, you know, everyone has a soul contract. We know that. We've heard that a bunch of times. Every single interaction is some contract or another. Dolores from the other side Dolores Cannon has told Sarah Brexman Cosme that was one of the things she didn't realize on the other side, how much every single interaction is a contract. She said when she was here, she knew it was the significant ones and ones that played a impact in our life. But when Dolores crossed over and they contacted her through the hypnosis, she was like, "Oh no, it's every single interaction. All of it is all interconnected." So it makes sense. But Lee Harris channeled that every celebrity has a contract with the people that are impacted by them. And if a celebrity dies and you're very impacted by them, there was also a contract for you to be impacted by their death. So I think it is possible because if everybody has a contract with those celebrities, and this is the reason I put it in my Britney Spears video. It was a positive Britney Spears video, not like all these other sensational opportunists. No, I did that positive video about Britney Spears and telling, her book and kind of the interesting stuff from her book. She mentions Conversations with God in her book as one of her favorite books, so that's interesting. She also has a tattoo, which is one of the Kabbalah names of God. So I picked the interesting things out of her book that were spiritual. She kind of had a thing about aliens too in there, which was interesting, where she said her and her friend were looking up at the stars and then they kind of lost time and they don't know if they just got so lost in the moment. But then the friend was kind of like, did we just get abducted? But I digress. The reason I put that in that video is because I thought of that Lee Harris channeling about celebrities having contracts. And she says in the book that when she was under the conservatorship, she just felt completely lost. And she was in this mental, that when they had her in that facility for months, and she just was giving up. And she said one of the nurses said, "We're not supposed to show you, but do you know what's happening outside?" And she's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And she's like, "There's a whole Free Britney movement." And when she saw the Free Britney movement, she said it gave her power and life to actually fight for herself. And that's how she ended up getting out of the conservatorship, because she thought she had already lost. But then when she saw that her fans were fighting for her and that there actually was this whole movement of people that were trying to get her out, that's what gave her the power. And she says in that she's always been on a spiritual level connected to her fans, even if she doesn't know them personally. And oh, yeah, Anthony Bourdain too, yeah. I know, Anthony Bourdain too. Oh, it was River Phoenix. Oh. With those infinite contracts, it's hard to see this world being free will if every interaction is predetermined. But is it predetermined? Because a contract has clauses, right? So, how can it be that complex and elaborate? I think this whole thing is so complex and elaborate, right? If we created AI and if AI is so complex and elaborate, imagine what God created. Like, just little old us can create this elaborate. By the way, this is the cover of my book, you guys. Little sneak peek for you. I've been looking at it for months, but obsessed with the Sarah Brexman Cosme interviews. Wow. Aw, thank you. Yeah, and if you have or haven't, make sure that you watch when she put me under QHHT, because that I need to go back and revisit those, because that was crazy. The Greys came in and were speaking through me. And I love the Greys. I feel like I've been too busy for the Greys recently. A little sad. I love them. Okay, let's see. I think there was a Grey question in here. Let's give the Greys a little attention. Okay, so Mike asks, 5149 grays. So this is something that came up in my QHHT. Oh, thanks, Nat. Oh, thanks, Meg. Oh, one of your guides is a tall gray. Oh, cool. Okay. So this is one of the things that came up in my first hypnosis with Sarah Brexman Cosme. I have multiple on my channel. And the first time we asked, the first time we did the hypnosis, it was my higher self giving the answers. The second time we did the hypnosis, the night before, I made the conscious effort with my higher self that I said, if any of these beings want to just speak directly, I'm okay with it if you're okay with it. And so it was very different answers when we asked my higher self about the gray, not very different, just different from when we asked my higher self about the grays versus when we asked the grays about themselves. And so, and you can see if you watch both, the type of answers are different. The information is similar, but the grays just answer differently. But when it was my higher self speaking, they brought up this 51-49% thing. So this comes from the law of one. And they say basically to be on the higher timeline, to be of the light, to be, in the positive polarity, of the universe, you have to be 51% service to others and 49% service to self. And they actually say you don't want to be 90% service to others because then it spirals and goes off the rails. So, a lot of people are like, I'm 100% service to others. Good luck with that. It's not a good balance because that's not what you're here to do. And then they say, actually, I think in the negative polarity, you have to be extreme in the negative polarity. But if you're not at that 51-49, you kind of just stay stagnant and don't ascend, is what they're saying. But I think for the negative polarity, you have to be super, super, super negative. I think they said Genghis Khan. I can't remember fully, but I think in the book they said Genghis Khan was one of the few people throughout history that was super into the negative polarity, but he was 80%, 90% service to self. However, if you're not at that 51-49, 51% service to others, then you just kind of don't move that quickly. But they say that the grays, in order to stay in this kind of positive polarity and to continue on this process with this version of the universe, they stay 51% service to others and 49% service to self. And that it never, because they are even Steven, not a drop more, not a drop less. Myra says, were you in distress when you made an agreement with the grays? Are you aware of the situation that made you make the agreement? So my understanding is that agreement was made when I was 5 years old, and that's how that happened. Now it hasn't come up in the last few months, but up until the cruise, it was very active. Obviously, I've been in love and in my love life since the cruise. So that probably also is a part of it. But up until the cruise, there was a lot of gray energy coming in, through everybody around me, kind of saying hey, they're trying to figure out a contract with you. I had so many people who do channeling, who do psychic work, people who are intuitives. Friend of mine was in a dream last night and she didn't know about my stuff with the grays. She's like, I had a dream about you and you were working for the grays. And she was like, and I was scared of you. I was like, oh shit. And then I was like, it's crazy that you're saying that because it kept coming through a lot of people that they were trying to finalize an agreement. I don't know if that agreement got finalized. It definitely wasn't conscious. It was not a conscious agreement. Oh, hi, Neil. Welcome. What's the way to be in service to others? That's a great question. What is the best way to be service to others? I think there's a lot of ways that you can do that. I think even honestly, like, small acts of kindness are huge, right? Because if you're looking at the entirety, it doesn't mean 51% of every scenario. It's like the entirety of your life. So, small acts of kindness could be like holding a door open for someone, helping someone out with something, a friend going through something, being like, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need anything?" Like, things like that are going to, because if you think about it, in Destiny of Souls, I believe it was Destiny of Souls. It might be Journey of Souls, but I'm pretty sure it was in Destiny of Souls that they have this guy who, it was during the depression, his past life, and he was like so successful, had all of these jobs during the depression. He like kept the factories open, had the kids working in the factories, all this stuff. And he was like, "Oh, I did so much in my life because I helped so many people by giving them jobs when they needed it." He did his life review, and he found out during his life review that the only good thing that he did in his life that was significant was there was a woman crying at a bus stop, and he stopped and sat with her and, like, let her vent for a moment, and then told her, like, "You got this. You're gonna do it." Like, and it was during the depression, so she was crying that, like, she couldn't take care of her family, and he was like, "You got this. You're gonna do it." And she went and got on the bus. They said that was the most significant moment in his whole entire lifetime. So you can't measure the service to others by the way that you think, because this guy was like, "Okay, well, I helped all of those people work. I helped all of those people to support their families." And they were like, "No, but you did that because you wanted to make money off of them and you wanted your workers." And it was like, what you really did that was service to others, and they don't use the word service to others. They say it was the most significant moment of that lifetime. Out of all the success that he had, was being kind to that woman at the bus stop while she was crying. Right, you're right, Kelsey. Smiling at a random person is huge. That's true. You don't know if you're gonna shift their day. Being peaceful is your favorite service. That's a good one. Do you think it's more about intention or outcome? That's a good question. I think intention, right? I think it's more about intention because you can't control outcomes. You can only control your intention. So that's why, smiling at someone, holding the door open, comforting someone, reaching out. So, like, say you reach out to someone and you're like, "Hey, I heard you're not feeling well. Do you want me to bring something to you?" And they decline. If they are not able to receive, that's okay. Your intention was to help serve them. Are you familiar with the CIA report of the KGB being retaliated upon after shooting down a gray aircraft? Read it if not. I did a video on it on Instagram. So I break down that document, but one thing that we have to be really mindful of when it comes to these CIA documents is there's a difference between a factual document and there's a thing. So a lot of stuff that's in CIA documents is actually coming from books, newspapers. So there's a ton of stuff from like National Enquirer, even though that's from Russia or Ukraine or something. Um, yeah, no, I think it was in 1994 it came out, and then the event was before that. So you have to see when you look at these documents, a lot of times these documents are translations of foreign media sources versus them talking about an actual document. So I break down the actual event. However, a lot of these things, even like that whole thing that people talk about, that the CIA document about the holographic reality, how they admit that our universe is a hologram. It's not a CIA document. It's a reference to a book. So anything that is referenced in books, they collect in their archives, and you have to look at the top of the page and see if this is an actual. Um, why can't I think of the word? Like a brief type of thing. If this is an actual brief or official statement, which, looks a certain way. It's like a letter has this. Otherwise, it's being taken from media, it's being taken from TV, it's being taken from other countries, National Enquirer, sometimes it's from our National Enquirer. So, it's a mix of things, and we doesn't mean it didn't happen, but it also doesn't mean, that it's the type of CIA document that we think we're talking about. You can get the documents from the CIA website or yeah. Yeah, they are legit, but you have to look at the source of it, because if it's a brief from someone, then you're like, "Oh, okay, this was a real documented event." A lot of them are translations of things or like yeah, here we go. So that CIA document that is talking about the, holographic that the world is a hologram is just taking references from this book, which is called Stalking the Wild Pendulum. And in the beginning of this book, which this book is great, but in the beginning, he says, "This is the" yeah, first I would like okay, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't say that everything in this book is actual fact. It's saying that the things that are in this book are his ideas and where his current understanding is. Okay, let's see. Another question from Instagram. If you could write a playbook for the ideal disclosure, how would it look? I mean, ideal. I mean, I guess what ideal does, I mean, my most fun disclosure would be some UFO on the White House lawn, press conference with a gray. That would be my most fun, ideal disclosure. Uh, that I'm like, yeah, bring her in, the whole bring the grays and the mantises and let them have, whoever the president is, if it's Trump, whatever, like, yeah, that's what I would love. uh, in my fun, ideal world. What do I think is the most ideal as far as the safest, most practical, most easy to integrate, highest timeline disclosure idea? People are not going to like this answer, but I think, yeah, the Mars Attacks version. Oh my God, I love Mars Attacks. The most ideal version, I kind of think, is what we're doing now, which is the little slow drip disclosure that is so annoyingly slow that everybody's like, "Didn't we already say this? Didn't you already say that? Didn't it already get like those documents already been released? Isn't it already old news?" And then it slowly gets there, and then eventually there's enough, like, drones and sightings and fake stuff in the sky that everybody has a reference in the back of their mind of, "I saw something in the sky once." So then when it really does start to happen, people are like, "Oh, well, I did see something one time, so I guess that" and then everybody's integrated. So, I think that's the safest way for it to happen, because if it just is like UFO on the White House lawn, then it's mass hysteria. You said although the world is a holographic universe, and we're certainly being projected from a black hole, they are mathematically proving it, but not the hologram we think of. Yeah, I agree 100%. Um, I do believe that we're in the holographic universe. And exactly, I think the hologram is a pattern versus what we think a hologram is. Ooh, do you believe mermaids and fairies exist? And are they in a different plane and sometimes catch glimpses of them? So fairies, 100%. 100% fairies are real. I believe fairies are here. They're in now, some people say they're in the fourth dimension. Some people say they're in the second density. I've heard both things. That basically the second density is like the level of consciousness that they're not at the individual consciousness enough to be in human form. Other people say they're in the fourth dimension. I 100%. The fairies are here. Now, mermaids, I wonder, are they currently here or are they of the past? Are they um, something that used to be here? I don't know. You will only reincarnate here as a mermaid, otherwise you're out. So, what's interesting is one of the first people I ever put under, QHHT was my friend, and she literally went to her past life as a fairy, and basically it was saying that, like, how someone could be like a starseed and have had another life on another planet or another life as an alien. Some people have a past life as a fairy, and their soul, so it was saying her soul is a fairy soul. She doesn't have, like, I mean, we all have these types of souls, but her soul is mostly fairy, and that she's just projecting into this reality in human form, but that she's actually a fairy still. So that was interesting, and I believed it 100% because literally nobody is more of a fairy than her. You get flashes of them. Yeah, so we do get glimpses for sure of the fairies, 100%. Okay, so you know what? Let's come back to the mermaids. Because I have this other theory about when we're in, like, rural spaces, so if you're, like, out in the desert, that's why people see a lot of stuff in the desert, like, they see UFOs, they see Bigfoot, they see, all different types of things out there. Because my theory, when I was driving through the desert, I was driving to Arizona, and it, like, hit me when I was seeing the mirages, and I know the mirages are just a reflection, but when I was seeing the mirages, I was also thinking, I'm like, "Is this also another dimension? Like, am I in a space right now where, like, the other dimension is using these molecules as water?" And so the I was like, "Hmm," but then it got me thinking and I'm like, "Well, why do so many UFOs, sightings, and all of these things happen in places where there's not a lot of humans?" So a human, our consciousness is holding the space of the reality, is projecting what we believe that we're going to experience and anchors that. And then when you have a million people in one area, like, being in Hollywood, they're projecting their consciousness and it's anchoring the reality. But if you're out in Joshua Tree where there's not that many people, or even out somewhere where there's even less people, why do people see so many things there? And was thinking, is it because there's less people holding the consciousness of that area? So it's more flexible. So if someone is perceptive or in a flow state, like when you're driving, maybe they're able to kind of peer into the other dimensions because they're not that many people are holding that reality there. So that goes back to the mermaids because the instances that they do, because, Phoebe Daniels from TikTok, who was like the mermaid girl, she had all those videos that she had been posting and reposting about sailors and how these sailors will be out in the middle of nowhere and start seeing things or hearing things. And I get, when you're out there in the middle of nowhere and not just like crews out in the middle of nowhere, they're out there in the middle of nowhere doing these, huge shipping, uh, I don't know, missions, jobs, and they would hear things. So I wonder if that openness of the open sea is similar to like being out in the desert or being out in the woods where there's not people, how people see Sasquatch out there. The TikTok sailor recordings of the sirens and the mermaids. Yeah, those are really interesting. And then the locations falling on the grid lines too. Yeah, so then exactly, maybe there's a bit of a fold in the energy there. Your brain can go into a trance, so I think so. Yeah. Okay, let's see from the submitted questions. I'm gonna start answering them quicker. Um, Bashar told someone they had hybrid children, but couldn't tell them any details. Do you believe this? I don't know. Like, when I went to the Bashar event, he was saying that to people there, and, that's why I am not a fan of people asking personal questions at things like that. I think when people are at those open channelings, it should only be general questions, and I don't think that you should be allowed to ask personal questions, you know? And I think a lot of, like, psychics and stuff always do that, or, like, astrologers, they'll say, like, "No personal questions, you could just ask general," because it has to be beneficial for everybody, and you can't validate a personal question. So, I was surprised when I was at Bashar, how many people ask personal questions. It's, like, all personal questions, and I was like and that's why I told you I kinda, like, came around on Bashar because I was like, "You know what?" I was like, "Get 'em. Get 'em." People trying to ask a 3rd question. I used to think Bashar was, like, being mean to them, and then I was like, "I get it, be mean." And then I saw Daryl Anka live. He was letting people ask endless questions, and I was like, "Get Bashar in here to crack the whip, okay?" Because you know what? Daryl's too goddamn nice, and these people are asking too many questions. He said he's lost his channel and is faking it now. I wonder. I think he's a good teacher for people to have their entryway. You know? I think that's what happens. I do believe that most channelers over time lose the ability to do it or become okay. I was thinking about this recently and I thought about it a bit more because as I did that episode with Mami Onami about exoteric, mesoteric, and esoteric. And the exoteric is the stories. So, like, the Bible is a book of stories because that's how we can learn and understand. The New Age is all stories. Hinduism is all stories. These stories are the ways for us to understand these concepts that are so difficult. Probably none of the stories are actually the truth of what happened, but the truth is too dang confusing so that we need stories. We need Adam and Eve, and then an apple, and then a snake, and then the original sin. We need a galactic war between good and evil that led to this. There's reptilians, there's good guys, there's bad guys. We need these stories in order to understand principles that are very advanced. Like even the Kabbalion, I think, is a bridge of starting to get to those more like confusing truths, those paradoxal truths, the divine dichotomy. And so I was thinking about it with channelers and I was like, after last week's episode of what the fuck is going on out there? I don't know if you can hear it. Sounds like it doesn't sound like planes. It sounds like drones, like something small. Imagine they like busted in. That would be crazy because I'm going to Bali tonight. Drones or not. Okay. Um, Okay, I get distracted. I think it was last week that we were talking about oh, yeah, we talked about the reptilians and stuff and my own experience that I had with the reptilian. Even talking about Mitch Horowitz telling me my own experience with the grays. If I release the labels of grays, UFOs, soul, release all of these things and looked at it not through the lens of a story, was a very helpful and confusing message because I'm like, of course, that's what happened. I saw that's what happened. But now, as I start to release stories and understand that we need stories and experiences to understand things, but that the truth is actually a little different than that at a different level. So it made me think, what maybe is happening with some of these channelers is like, say, for example, someone channels the Galactic Federation, they channel Bashar's channeling the Essassani, which is this hybrid race of grays. It's grays and humans mixed in the future in an alternate timeline. Like that's who he's channeling and getting the information from. People are channeling Pleiadians, people are channeling Arcturians. I think because I was thinking about it and I was like, are these channelers losing their channel? And sometimes maybe. Or are they becoming cemented in the information that they're getting. And that's what I was thinking about after that live last week, because I was like, huh, if I was not willing to let go of the stories that I've experienced because I know that they were real, because that was real. I experienced it. However, if I don't release that, can I gain a better understanding? No. So, if somebody has channeled Galactic Federation but doesn't want to release the story because they know they've experienced it and because they know it's real, they can't really get higher information. If somebody has channeled the Essassani, they can't really get other information until they're willing to dissolve the beliefs that they have. If somebody is channeling the Arcturians, but is not willing to say, maybe the Arcturians are not Arcturians. Maybe it's me, or maybe it's nothing, or maybe I could just release it all together and just accept that I don't know. And I think that's where the channelers are losing their way, is that they're not willing to let go of what they have known and experienced. And how do you keep learning? Like that quote, the more I learn, the less I know. So they're preventing themselves a lot of times from learning higher levels because they know. He said, now that makes a lot of sense. The true meaning of limiting beliefs. Ooh, Natasha. Yeah, unless they're open to more. I agree. Both. Yeah, it could be both. You get kind of stuck in the residue, right? You imagine for channeling, which is being open to alternative frequency information tuning. Once you get solidified in a download, it would be hard to be open still. Yes. Ash, you put it in beautiful words. That's, I think, what's happening. And this is everything, right? The past life regressions that I had, I was very solid that those things happened to me, especially the first past life regression that I had. Then, or first and second, I was very convinced 100% because it was real. Then, when I went under QHHT for the first time, I saw myself go to like a Dewey Decimal System, open a little drawer, and take all of these lives. And then that was when I started to think, oh, wow, what if these past lives weren't mine? And I started to release them. And then it started to allow other information more. Going to Bali. You've been watching for that figure. Finger. Oh, thank you. I think we're gonna put rings on it on the day of the wedding. Yeah, no. He was like not sure if he was gonna wear a ring. I think he was leaning towards like no. I was like, what do you mean no? You're wearing a ring. Excuse me. I'm a Scorpio rising. I'm extremely possessive. No, that's part of it. I'm not gonna lie. But no, it's the act of the ritual of the ceremony, and then you have that reminder, like the same thing, like, right? We're talking about the Orgonite, right? So, like, this Orgonite, if I believe that it does EMF protection, then it does EMF protection. So, therefore, having a ring after you do a ceremony and a ritual of coming together and promising that you're gonna be together, then you have that item as the anchor for that. So, like, yeah, sure, you're still married without the ring, but I want that Orgonite, okay? What's my moon? Libra moon. Thank God, it saves me. When's the wedding? Is it down in Louisiana? Be sure to go to Lafitte's in New Orleans. It's the oldest pirate bar in the USA. Oh, wow. Cool. I still haven't been to New Orleans. I'm excited to go though. No, the wedding's gonna be in LA, in Santa Barbara. Oh, it's haunted. I wanna go. Nothing is set in stone, past, present, or future. Everything can change, and there are many timelines. Don't set your beliefs. It hinders. I agree. This is where we're getting to. This is why, you guys, I think that this is the new level of spirituality that I'm like grateful for the people who did those initial teachings and people who did those initial things. But honestly, I feel like this is it. Like, we're lifting and taking to the next level. And that requires us to be comfortable with letting go of some of the stories and identities. Like, I think it's difficult for a lot of people say who like identify with like, I'm a Pleiadian, I'm an Arcturian, I'm a Syrian, I'm a Mantis, I'm this. That I've talked about it before. It makes you think expansive, like, wow, I'm so big, I'm out there, I'm multidimensional. But the more you go out there, the actually less than you're making yourself. And I'm glad that I never really like identified as like a thing. People would always ask, like, what type of like starseed are you? And I'm like, I like them all, but me, I can't label. It's from my punk and goth era. I'll call it that now, but back then, don't ever call me punk or goth or cyber goth or this or that. I would never have taken those labels back then. Here, for a reference in the past, I can. But that's the thing is like, I'm glad that I didn't get stuck in those identities because then you actually make yourself smaller and that's the limiting beliefs, like Natasha said. Your current spiritual statement is, I believe everything is a little bit and nothing all the way. Ooh, beautiful. Mm. Yes, modern hermetic spiritual spirituality. I was like, society. Are you going to Bali on vacation or for work? Either way, have fun. We'll miss you. Oh, thanks. So, I am gonna probably maybe do a live stream next Tuesday from there. Not sure. Got to see how the connection in it all is. I have a pre-recorded one for the week after that where I talk about my book because then my book's coming out that week. You think the big star seed always focused on GFL crew are about to have a big ego death? Natasha, I think a lot of them are about to find Jesus because they're not ready to let go of stories. And so I think the what's going to happen is that a lot of people who super identified with these labels in spirituality, when they start to see that these are not what they think they are, instead of expanding more and being like, okay, show me, teach me, they're going to go right back to Jesus. I mean, give it 5 years. Half of the psychics, channelers, astrologers, all of it, gonna be born again. I seen it. I've been sainting it for the last 10 years. I seen it before my eyes. How many times I seen it? Okay. These people, because they become so anchored in something and then they get scared. Because then when it becomes unknown again, they run back. And that's fine if you love Jesus. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine if you want to be Christian. Nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot of people who do it out of fear, not out of love and the principles that it should be out of. It shouldn't be about, oh, now I'm scared as fuck because I don't know what the hell I was talking to. Most likely they were talking to themselves, a version of themselves, which is fine. That's okay. Your higher self is very wise. Your inner self is very wise. That's great. But a lot of these people are going to run to Jesus out of fear. 100%. I've been seeing it for years. I mean, we all know what happened to Doreen Virtue. You said, "What's in Bali?" No, I am not doing ayahuasca in Bali. That would be fun. But, I'm just going with Tony Ghazi, who is a channeler, who channels mantis beings, and I just love his channelings. And one thing that I had him on my podcast, you should go back and listen if you haven't. He does a channeling, and it's so expansive. Like, I really think that he's, like, the next stage of channeling too. Like this is like expansive channeling that is not like about the stories or the good and bad or the right and wrong or like the good versus evil, light versus dark. The same story that we heard every single goddamn channeler say for the last forever. We're going to the higher timeline, guys. And I get it. I was with that. And we're going to the higher timeline regardless. But now it's really about like being on that spectrum, that full spectrum of reality of the good with the bad. It's okay. You feel like shit? Feel like shit. You don't need to, love and light your way out of it. You know, I mean, guys, I mean, that's why I had my shadow work demon journey last year. Makes sense with Neptune Aries. What happened to Doreen? So Doreen Virtue, she did all of those angel decks. She has like 25 different angel oracle decks. She was like the OG. And then she said all of it was fake. None of them were angels. And then she became born again and denounces her whole work and everything and said, like, stay away from it. It's evil. Um, but yeah. So I think that's just what happens is like we've seen this happen a lot of times because people become so fixated in those downloads that they already got as truth that then when they've been told that this is not the truth, well, this is what happens, like they say that's what happens in the Illuminati, that's what happens in Scientology, that's what happens in Freemasonry, is that sometimes you get to this level and they tell you everything that you've learned in that previous level is a lie. And then you get to a higher level and you're like, now I know the truth. And then they say all of that was a lie. And a lot of people say that that's to like fuck people's heads up. But actually, with what we're talking about tonight, I think it's natural when you start going to higher levels of truth. There's two truths, there's half truths, there's a spectrum of truth. So I think that that's actually what happens in those things, that it's not just out of control, that it's out of like, well, we had to tell you this story so that you can get the idea. But the truth of it is, like we have to tell you that there's right and wrong and good and evil before you go to the level to understand there is no such thing as good and evil. There just is. And it's the same scale. And it depends your perspective of where you're on the scale of how you're going to view good and evil. People have to face their shadows. Yeah. Then the cognitive dissonance. Oh God, tongue twisted. Oh my God, you guys, I started doing the audiobook. It's not going to be out for a while. So when my book comes out, get the physical book because the audiobook's not going to be out for a minute. Oh, shit was hard. I was so tongue twisted. One of them was always triggered by the words Jesus or God. So that was even wilder to observe. Interesting. You have 3 people in your life who have switched to Christianity in the past year, all within 1 month around June, July. I wonder what was going on. Oh, they were all triggered by the word Jesus, God. Interesting. I think it's fear. And if people find religion, Jesus, Christianity, because of like, they genuinely like want the word of Christ and the teachings and like the real message, then yeah, go for it. It's just what I'm seeing is a lot of it is coming from fear. It's coming out of, well, I don't want to go to hell. Well, I don't want to be with the devil. Satan's out there. That's not a good reason. If you're doing anything out of fear, then it's, kind of disingenuous. If you're doing it out of, wow, this is aligned with my beliefs and I feel good about it, then I think that's the right way to go about it. You said Dolores Cannon just kept rolling with the punches. It's true. All the way to the end. Maybe the spectrum of evil, good and evil, is in fact the interplay between service to self and service to others. They say that correlation is there. And that's where, you know, um, wow, the moon flirts with Antares just popped up. So Antares is, where the mantises that Tony channels have told him that they're from. Oh, a rainbow outside. Wow. The issue is how is it weaponized in the States? Oh, what the religion, yeah, especially with this super interesting political landscape. Yeah, but you know what? It's all getting figured out. It's all getting figured out. The Greys you talk about, are they heavily into time travel? I think all the Greys are into time travel, or at least all the ones that are interacting with us are into time travel. Okay, I'm already over my time here, but I'm going to answer a couple more questions from the things. Could dreams be meetings with our parallel selves across the multiverse? I do think some dreams are us in parallel timelines and parallel universes. I do think sometimes we're meeting with other versions of ourselves, but I also think that dreams are our brain. There's two different, you guys. I mean, my dream journal, Lunar Oracle, get it on Amazon. But we actually have what is dreams. And so what are dreams? So yeah, I do think sometimes it's multi-timeline stuff. Sometimes it's just sparks from, neurons sparking and just sending information. Then there's kind of these two versions. So dreams as emotional simulations or dreams as problem solvers. So sometimes it's processing through emotional stuff, sometimes it's processing through mental stuff. So they're both kind of similar theories, but one is more so emotions, repressed things, and then the other one is more so ideas, problem solving, creative thinking. Carl Jung believed that dreams are mirrors of humanity, that they're archetypes that are playing out in our consciousness. And then the alternative reasons for dreams are alternate realities, that this is us in parallel universes, interacting with other versions of ourselves, dreams as portals, that we actually are going to another realm sometimes, and then messages from the beyond. So sometimes these are connections with spirits, loved ones, guides, ancestors, and then you could track your dreams the right way using your lunar. And then we have all these resources. Lots of resources. Okay, a couple more. You had 2 lucid dreams this week. Wow. Are UFOs powered by consciousness rather than technology? I think it might be a mix of both. If you watch my most recent episode of the Ultra Minds podcast with Candice Marie from Beyond the Veil Tarot, this very interesting theme came up in all of her answers. And I kept being like, is it consciousness or technology? Is it consciousness? So she was talking about time stuff she was saying. I'm like, damn, is that consciousness or technology? Then she was talking about like travel. I'm like, is it consciousness or technology? She was talking about like everything she was talking about. I was like, damn, this theme of like, is it consciousness or is it technology? And I think that there is this weaving between them that is happening. I think consciousness isn't everything. But I think now as technology is getting so advanced and consciousness is also getting advanced, they're both mirroring each other and ascending, if you will. And I think that this interweaving of consciousness and technology, we're at a little bit of like an early precipice, at an early seedling of it. But other species, other beings are much further down the line with this consciousness and technology. And I think it's very interwoven because we're technology, right? The body is technology, God's technology. Um, what is the best way, or what's a good way to remove blocks that keep us from accessing spiritual knowledge? So I think if we believe that we have blocks, then we have them. 51% watching have hit the thumb. Thank you. 51% of you. Wow, we're going to the higher timeline, the light polarity. But if we go beyond 51%, because we're not the grays, you could go beyond 51%, hit the like. Yeah, I agree. There are no blocks. Oh, yeah, there are no blocks. Don't we need those stories? They become part of our ego and grounds us in our physical reality, giving us our identity. Yeah, so it's not that the stories are bad. But if we become so fixated on the stories, will we actually continue to ascend in awareness, in consciousness, in things like that? So I think that's where it is like be willing to like take the stories, but then be willing to say, is this true? Or is it okay if this isn't the truth? If this whole story of how humanity, the Anunnaki story, is it okay if the Anunnaki story is not the truth and that it's something else that happened? But that's as easy as we can understand it, that some aliens came here and enslaved us. And now there's a cycle on this planet. We have to be okay, but not everybody's okay. Not everybody wants to go to those other levels. Yeah, we've done the 51% service to others. Woo! This live is going to the positive polarity, right? More than one thing can be true. That's why things get crazy as you get to these other levels of understanding where everything is true. Okay, so what's a good way to remove blocks that keep us from accessing spiritual knowledge? I don't believe that there's blocks, but if you feel that there's blocks, then what are those blocks? If you feel that there's a block, then that's definitely telling you something and it's definitely making you reflect on something. So definitely reflect on that thing, but don't think that it's something in your way and don't think that it's something that you can't stop or change or move. But there is no real blocks. If we give the power to the block, just like we give the power to this Orgonite, give the power to the wedding ring, then we give the power to the supplement, then it anchors that. So if we give the power to the block, then that kind of does become solidified because now we believe it and now we do believe we're blocked. So don't believe you're blocked. There's no blocks. But if you feel that you are, then that's asking you to look at it. That's asking you to reflect and say, okay, what needs something here? Let's say your block is like fear, right? Oh, there's a block. I can't tell what it is. It's scary. Okay, you're experiencing fear. Fear's the block then. Okay, how do I need to overcome fear? I'm safe. Nothing bad can happen to me. I'm good. Nothing spiritual is going to happen. Nothing's going to hijack me. There's no possession. There's no nothing. You're good. Like, and then you might have to say, like, I am safe. I'm safe. I'm okay. I'm taken care of. The universe is protecting me. God is watching over me. Whatever works for you. And then that's probably the block. It's probably around fear. How can you have an alien reveal themselves to you? Maybe through meditation and intention, a lot of intention setting. A lot of intention setting. Most likely, it will not happen in your eyes in the physical. Uh, it will probably happen within your mind, within consciousness. And just be open to it. And also, there's this thing about I'll believe it when I see it. Well, you're not going to see it if you don't believe it. So that right there is a block. So this whole seeing is believing, no, believing is seeing. So truly believe that you can, and maybe it'll be in a dream. But then actually believe the dream, because then a lot of people then say, "Well, no, it was a dream, but it felt real and they were doing stuff to me." And then just believe it. Because a lot of times I have a podcast coming out in a couple weeks by, Patty Dubroff, who's, like, the world-renowned makeup artist, and she talked about how we talk more about beauty and stuff because, she's a leading person in the beauty industry, but we also talked a little bit about spirituality, and she said that, like, she had to, like, give herself permission to believe the things that she saw, that she has seen things throughout her life. And it took until recently for her to allow herself to give herself the permission to be like, that's what it was. I didn't need to talk my way out of it. I didn't need to convince my way into something more logical. I didn't need to pretend that I didn't see what I saw. I didn't need to chalk it up to this or that. So give yourself also permission to believe. Mhm. Fauna. I think you're great, that's all. Thanks for the beautiful spectrum of timeless musings. Have a great trip to Bali. Oh, thanks. Yeah, like you said, go make a voodoo doll and poke it. Yeah, exactly. If you think a curse works, then it will work on you. Yeah, with psilocybin, yeah, you might meet aliens on psilocybin for sure. Permission slips, yeah, that Bashar talks about the permission slips. We all equally inclined to accept our own versions of truth and how we interpret them. If nothing bad happens, then nothing good happens because it's all be perceived as just neither. When you get to those higher levels and you just believe that everything is neutral. But if you are still believing that there's good and bad, then you're like, damn, that only good stuff happens to me. I know people like that all the time and they perceive it that way. Even bad things they perceive as something good. So everything good is happening to them. All right. Every Tuesday night live is definitely positive. Woo. Okay. Well, I better get going because I need to get to the airport. Placebo effects. When are you coming back to Sedona? Missed your appearance with LightNet last time. I actually didn't do an appearance with LightNet. They said that I was going to, but that didn't happen. I don't know when I'm coming back to Sedona. I don't know. I have to see if one of these events are right for me. Thank you, Ash. Yeah, it's all about perception and perspective. I agree. You believe more since following the live and podcast. Oh, thanks. Enjoy Bali. Thank you. Okay, guys. Uh, so much appreciate you. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, everybody. I will see you guys not next Tuesday and not the next Tuesday. But I will be putting up some pre-recorded stuff that you haven't seen yet that is brand new. So go to that. I also, depending, I have a Linda Moulton Howe interview that I don't think I ever released. So I might end up putting that up for one of the Tuesdays. It's just the quality is not so great, but I mean, it's Linda. Come on. So I might put it up anyway for the Tuesday. Thank you guys. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Give us Linda. I know. You know what? The reason I never put up the Linda interview was because I went through my shadow work journey like the next day. Like the next day. I was not okay for like 3, 4 months. All right, guys. Bye.